got a train package in it here. Just going to do a quick startup. This one we installed earlier today. I'm getting around to doing the startup on it. I've already gone in, check the thermostat. Got it set up. This is a heat pump package in it. Basically just a single stage heating and cooling package in it. We got 5 kW heaters in here. We're going to run all this and double check it to make sure all my wiring is correct. Got an outdoor temperature switch right here for our lockout control on the heat strips, but that one doesn't work. You got to have one that's got the external sensor you can run outside, because when this thing's closed up and the heat's running, the back wall of this thing gets warm, the inside of here gets warm, and there's a hornet flying around. And very rarely is going to inside of this electrical panel, even when it's 30 degrees, and I've seen it happen. These disc operated switches, the inside of this panel doesn't get cold enough for the auxiliary heat to come on. So I can already see we're going to have to come back and change that out and get the one that has the thermocouple on it, where I can run it outside where it's actually out into the air. But we typically will set those at about 40 degrees. But like I said, on a cold night when this thing's running, the back wall of this package unit is the supply side of the air, where a heat exchanger would be in the gas pack, and it stays warm in here. The electronics are in here. The heat strips are right here, but they're not going to come on if the temperature in here doesn't drop below what we're set at here. So I'd have to turn this thing down to, like, I don't know, set it at like 50 degrees really, because I think I had one a couple of years ago. It was 28 degrees outside, and when I set my probe inside this thing, closed it back up, it was still 58 degrees inside of it, 57 inside the electrical compartment. So I'm gonna have to come back and swap that out, but I can still run everything and check it, make sure it's all wired up correctly and working. That wire came right out. I'm guessing that wasn't in there tight, but anyway, let's get that fixed. So this is why you do startups, to kind of check things and catch the things that don't go correctly or don't get wired up right. I mean, it happens, and that's why you do startups. You got to catch it. So everything in here is snugged up good. So we're going to run in there to the thermostat. I'm going to turn this thing on. We're going to check our refrigerant charge over here and run it in cooling and in heating, make sure everything's operating properly. Alright, so I've got this thing running in cooling right now. I'm not going to run it very long. I mean, it's 70 in the house. It's up to about 67 today outside, but I'm going to run it for about 10-15 minutes just to let the pressure stabilize, make sure everything's good. Brand new package unit, should be fine. What I was explaining to you about this, in some situations we'll put a wired outdoor temperature sensor in. Sometimes we just use these mechanical outdoor switches to lock out the heat strips below or above a certain temperature. So we'll set it at 40. It's open above 40. Temperature drops below 40, it closes. If the thermostat's calling for auxiliary, when that switch closes, it makes over here to the heat strips, turns them on. But with this particular version of this switch, it's got this little disc in here. It doesn't have the thermocouple that goes out to the exterior of the unit, so it's not reading a true outdoor temperature. And on colder nights, the heat's running the inside of this gets warm air blowing through there, the electronics, things like that. It's really hard. I've yet to see one of these drop low enough on a cold night to allow the heat strips to actually come on. So I'm gonna have to come back, put the correct outdoor mechanical switch on this. So that's explaining that for people that were watching it a while ago or a few minutes ago when I was talking about that. If I went too fast for you, it's just a mechanical way to lock out your auxiliary heating or your electric heat strips on these units so that they don't come on until it's cold enough for them to be on. But anyway, not worried about all of that right now because I've got the air conditioning running. So we are running about an 8 degree, 9 degree superheat, 12.5 subcooling. It's probably cooling down in the house pretty quick. Charge is looking good in cooling mode. We'll grab some amp draws on the compressor and the fan and the blower. We'll check the temperature split on it, make sure that's good. And usually on these package units, I'll come over here and pop one of these screws out. Slide that probe in there. On this particular unit, this is the supply side. That's going to be your return side, so your return's coming in here, going through the system, through the coil, the gas, heat exchanger, heat strips, whatever it's set up, and your supply is feeding back through here. So I'll come down here on this side panel, and we're getting about a 47 degree supply right there. Come around here. We'll get my return. This is now going to be the return side of the system. Pressure's right down there. So we're up to about a 68, 69 return. And then we'll go in there and switch the heat on. See what our refrigerant charge is looking like in heat mode, get our temperature rise, check our heat strips, make sure they're functioning properly. Alright guys, so we are on now in heat mode, and these are our pressures right now in heating. But keep in mind it's about 67 degrees outside, so those pressures are going to creep right up there, but everything's running. And now this switch is open right now because obviously the temperature outside is above what it's set to. So I do already have a call. I'll show you that real quick. Checking it right there. I do have a call for auxiliary heating to be on, but it's going through this switch. Switch is still open because it's warm outside. So I know my thermostat's calling. I'm simply just going to jump across the inside, the end of that switch to the out, which comes back when that switch closes, turns on the heat strips. You just heard the contactor close, and we have 21 amps on our heat strips. So I know now if the auxiliary circuit initiates at the thermostat, this switch is closed, the temperature is below our set point for the switch, it will pass voltage through and turn on the heat strips, assuming the switch closes. They usually do. These things don't go bad. You just got to have the right one, like I said. So I'm going to come back and replace this one so I don't have one reading the temperature inside this cabinet and not closing when it needs to. And then this little plug on the side of this unit, I'm going to pop a little hole in it And then I'm going to run the thermocouple for that switch out here, so it's sitting outside reading our actual outdoor temperature, and make sure that when it does get cold enough that the auxiliary heat is needed for this unit, they come on like they're supposed to, and we don't end up with a service call or a recall on a install job. But everything here is working, guys. We'll get a quick temp rise on the heat pump. So I'm gonna come over here real quick, see what kind of temperature I'm getting on this heat pump. Heat pump only. Reset that. And then we'll see what kind of rise we get when the heat strips activate. And that will be it. So we're getting a, like I said, it's 66 degrees outside right now. So this thing is producing a lot of heat on the heat pump side. There's a lot of heat out here being absorbed in that coil. But I'm gonna go cycle these heat strips on real quick and see what our total rise of the system is with everything activated. And we should be good. Those are only 5 kW heat strips in this unit. It's kind of a smaller house. We're only looking at a 2-ton package unit. And we're up to 115, 116, 117. So we're at a 40, roughly a 47, 48, 49 degree rise on this system. So she is purring like a kitten. And that's why we do the startups on these. Sometimes the install crew will do it, just depends. But this customer is a kind of a special situation, so I am out here doing it to make sure it's right. And I'm gonna hook back up in here real quick, and we want to make sure these heat strips come on in defrost cycle. And they do. I'm glad that works. Sometimes it doesn't. And everything's good with the Train 2-ton. I'm not even going to open the evaporator coil door because I know I'm going to see a micro channel coil, and I really don't need to ruin my afternoon by seeing that. So we'll call this one good, guys. Thanks for watching, and you guys enjoy your afternoon.